Good evening to viewers. We thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on ETV. The search for the 7 tourists reportedly kidnapped earlier this week in the far north region of the country continues, and the conservator at Waza Park in that part of the country has said that the 7 victims did not pass the night at the said park in the day of the incident. And also in this newscast, we take you out of Cameroon, precisely in South Africa, where the South African Olympic star Oscar Pistorius, who allegedly killed his girlfriend, was today granted bail in this afternoon. And also our guest tonight looks at the business climate in Cameroon 4 years after the inception of the Cameroonian Business Forum. These are major headlines, details and more just in a moment. Good evening to you viewers once again. We thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television. We begin right away here in the economic capital Douala, where enormous material damage has been recorded after a story building collapse at Makepe area here in Douala. And the incident has been blamed on the negligence on the part of the proprietor. And Annabella tells us in the following report that fortunately enough, no human life was endangered. Her report.
These people are still to come out of shock after a story building collapsed in this neighborhood, Makepe, here in Douala. This little boy is one of the builders of the affected house. He said they already had a clue the building was to collapse.
So my master told me that this house is going to fall down. So since yesterday, he told me that. So he asked me to come and work yesterday. I refused. I even told him that I'm not going to because I haven't had a child. So everybody was laughing at me.
He further explains how he escaped death by hair's breadth.
This woman here that has the house, she called us to come and eat. Just for us to descend down to eat, the house started collapsing.
It all happened before the watchful eyes of these little girls. Other neighbors were reportedly lucky enough as no other nearby house was affected and no human life was lost.
I didn't see anybody died. I didn't think.
Occupants of other buildings blame the incident on the proprietor's negligence.
Moi, je leur disais que là où vous trouvez là, quand un immeuble signale déjà une station photo se casse, vous êtes en danger. Le chef chantier voulait continuer à convaincre les gens que ce qui son travail était un travail de qualité.
At the time of this report, the owner of the affected building was nowhere to be found.
And at the Douche municipal area here in the economic capital Douala, it was an entire content of a building material shop that was completely ravished by flames. As we can see on our screens, the exact cause of the flames is still unknown, but it is widely speculated that it ignited following the sudden return of electricity. And reports say enormous material damage was recorded, and fortunately enough as well, no human life was lost. We'll be telling you more on that in a subsequent newscast. Now, at least 4 persons have sustained injuries following a standoff between locals of the Poto neighborhood here at Bonaberry in the economic capital Douala. Reports say the residents of Beseke and those of Bonasama in that locality, that is in Bonaberry, were fighting over a piece of land, after which a house was reportedly set ablaze. Senior reporter Christopher tells us more in the following report.
This is the land disputed by the chiefs of Beseke and Bonasama, all quarters situated in the Douala 4 district area. Fierce fighting opposing the 2 quarter youths around Kate Poto in Beseke began with exchange of blows by the 2 quarter heads. That is, Same for Beseke and Kinge Ejange for the Bonasama people. This led to the destruction of the latter's vehicle and himself sustaining wounds. His king's men rapidly mobilized in his defense. They were stopped in their action by the youths from Beseke. A remake of this scenario came up late into the night with 2 compounds destroyed and some 4 people sent to hospital with macheted wounds. Law enforcement officers thus joined the dance to restore peace and order, but it took them the whole night for their mission to be attained. After the Beseke chief's version of the story, in which his colleague from Bonasama is accused of destroying and looting private property, the latter, Chief Kinge Ejange, only ordered his guards to walk Equinox team of reporters out of his compound, claiming he would send for them when he deems necessary. For now, the case is in the hands of the Douala 4 administration, pending judicial action that is expected to follow suit.
And away from the economic capital Douala, we take you to the far north region of the country to have an update of the 7 tourists that were reportedly kidnapped in that part of Cameroon, where search continues within and without the country amid announcement of the ways of securing tourists in Cameroon. The announcement was made today by the Minister of Tourism, Bello Bubamaigari. Meanwhile, the conservator of the Waza National Park has said the names of the 7 tourists do not feature amongst those who visited the park on that fateful day, and the governor of the far north region of the country has ordered for the impoundment of the vehicle from which the tourists were kidnapped. And so far, no group has claimed responsibility of the kidnapping. Now let's talk politics, where Lekam has registered just 4 million of the 7,000 previewed voters on the electoral register, and political figures in the capital city Yaoundé are arguing that it is likely as a result of lack of confidence on the country's electoral system by Cameroonians. And they were speaking as the February 28th deadline of the biometric registration draws near. A Yaoundé-based correspondent Roland Akon tells us more in the following report.
Elections Cameroon has so far registered 4 million Cameroonians on the biometric electoral roll. 4 million registered voters puts to question the legitimacy of the electoral system in Cameroon.
They have been globally disappointed by, the way politics have been carried out in Cameroon. They have been disappointed by, the political leadership which have been, operating in Cameroon before the year the 90s.
Traditionally, I think that Cameroonians are not confident to our electoral system.
With 4 million registered voters, Elekam also falls short of 3 million voters to meet its 7 million target. These arguments, plus others, have widely triggered thoughts of a possible extension of the February 28 registration deadline.
In the actual situation, I think that we are going to extend the date, the limit date for registration.
For me, if we just take into account the 4 million persons who have been registering themselves, this may be sort of illegitimate, election. So we absolutely need to give to Cameroonians, another huge opportunity to register themselves. Maybe 1 month, I don't know what they will decide at last, but we need a sort of, extension of that delay.
These thoughts could be right, as a mad rush is now observed at registration post as the February 28 deadline narrows. But an extension of the deadline to 1, 2, or 3 more months, will it not kill this last-minute rush? That is the question.
Now we take you out of Cameroon, still within the African continent, where the South African athlete Oscar Pistorius, who allegedly murdered the girlfriend, was this afternoon granted bail by the chief magistrate of the court in Pretoria after 4 days of hearing of his case. And the accused is facing murder charges over the fatal shooting of his girlfriend. And the magistrate who granted him bail said the state had not met any case that he would flee or that he had a violent character. And the Olympic star had denied the murder, saying he shot his girlfriend thinking she was probably an intruder at his home that evening. And the magistrate, who took about 2 hours to deliver the judgment, said he had difficulty understanding why Mr. Pistorius opened fire the way he did. And the next hearing of the case has been set for the 4th of June 2013. Now we talk sports. Before we go, the South African regional or the South regional president of Rugby Federation in Cameroon has said that there is need for the sector to be revamped, and he said that it would be one of his set objectives if he is elected president of the National Rugby Federation in Cameroon. Our Yaoundé-based correspondent Roland Akon spoke with him and now tells us more.
After managing the South Regional League of Rugby, this daring gentleman wants the post of the national president of the National Rugby Federation.
Ayant été sollicité par mes pairs du rugby camerounais, j'ai accepté de me présenter comme candidat justement pour redorer l'image du Cameroun.
He told reporters in Yaoundé that his intention to stand for the post in upcoming elections follows the shameful dismissal of Cameroon from the Confederation of African Rugby this month.
C'est-à-dire la suspension du Cameroun de toute compétition internationale par l'IRB et puis par la CAR, la Confédération africaine de rugby, fait que
Cameroon failed to participate in many competitions organized by the Confederation of African Rugby. Evra Eyenga has as major challenger the incumbent barrister Patrice Monté.
Nous avons déjà redoré, pour ce qui est en premier lieu de l'image du Cameroun, qui a été écornée à l'échelle internationale. Nous devons vulgariser le rugby dans les milieux scolaires. Nous devons déjà doter le rugby camerounais d'un...
And it is on this note that we call it quit for this first segment of the news, but Talking Point is up next. Thanks indeed, viewers, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We are going to be talking about the just ended Cameroonian Business Forum, which ended today in the economic capital, Douala. How far has the Cameroon business climate gone? And tonight we have an economic expert or an economic analyst, or a business analyst. Good evening, and thank you so much, Mr. Richard Tondo, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mefo.
Like Elias said, this was the 4th edition of the Cameroon Business Forum that ended in the economic capital, Douala, and you must have been keen on the developments. It's something that was created about 4 years ago, and it's a platform that brings together owners of small and medium-sized enterprises as well as economic operators in the country to see how the business climate in Cameroon could be ameliorated. So what could be your assessment of the business in Cameroon so far, the business climate so far in Cameroon?
What should be first taken into consideration is that this framework, dialogue framework between the business milieu and the government, now called Cameroon Business Forum, was preceded first by what used to be the Interministerial Committee open to the private sector. But since that Interministerial Committee was not meeting regularly, the business concerns and business men did ask government to make it more formal, and that's how the Cameroon Business Forum was created. It was created, as you said it rightly, in order to ameliorate the business climate within the country, because the business climate in the country is not that satisfactory at all. As far as all the issues that have to make investors feel secured in doing business in our country, in putting in money into our economy. For instance, we are going to take just a few. Justice. As long as business partners do not feel secure about justice, it will be difficult for them to invest into a country. We can also take the issue of administrative procedures or the red tape, where we see a file as let's say, trying to create a company. It takes too long to create a company. It takes 10 to 20 times more in Cameroon than in a country like Mozambique. And issues like infrastructures, there's a real lack of infrastructure in the country. Just an instance, the energy sector, which is part of infrastructure, is really poor, and that's how we are experiencing rationing and fire outbreaks as consequences and deaths, but it is not really assuring for businessmen.
Potential businessmen to come into Cameroon and invest. And probably these problems that you just cited were there before the inception of the Cameroon Business Forum, I think. So with the coming of the forum so far, what has evolved in the business sector in Cameroon?
What we do remark is that a lot of resolutions are taken, but they really take time as well for implementation. We cannot say that people within the country are really satisfied with the way justice is rendered for the businesses. We cannot say that there has been any improvement in the supply of power energy. We cannot say that there has been so far any improvement as far as road infrastructures are concerned. We hope that after such a meeting, government and all the other partakers of the project, the stakeholders, will make the efforts required to achieve what they have decided.
So, of course, you talked about a lot of difficulties, meaning that there's something that could possibly be done. And what could possibly be done to ease this atmosphere of business in Cameroon?
I think in a country, governance as a whole is important. There's a need for real political will to make things change as far as business is concerned. Is there any real concern for businessmen? Is there any real concern for investors? Is there any real concern for even the very small business enterprises? I think those are questions that need to be answered, because we don't believe and we don't think that so far there has been any effort as far as the political will is concerned. And that's why we keep on holding meetings and meetings and meetings, because there's no effective action.
So now, could you tell us the importance of maybe making the business climate in Cameroon very easy, as you are saying, very enabling for any potential business person to venture in? What is the importance in the Cameroonian society?
The importance in the Cameroonian society is that it is going to, first of all, free all the well-wishers, be they nationals or be they foreigners. Because as far as when the climate is good, everybody tends to move into a country. And even the nationals will not take their money away. They will not go and invest it also, out of the country. And it is obvious that people go where their money is safe.
So you mean money of business persons in Cameroon, their money is not safe if they do business in Cameroon?
That's why, and there's a lot of money laundering and money tax evasion and a lot of money going out of the country. I mean, all of us do read newspapers, and we see how people get the money, and they prefer placing it out of the country because they don't feel it secured within the country.
And of course, it's having an adverse impact on the Cameroonian society as well.
That's very obvious.
How?
Obvious, because the money generated by the workforce of the country is being used somewhere else. It is not being processed within the country. It is not being multiplied through additional workforce within the country.
So now, talking about the so many investors that we are receiving only the town of Douala on daily basis, coming to exchange with their Cameroonian counterparts. They come to Cameroon on daily basis. In the capital city, Yaoundé, it is reported there on daily basis. It means they are just coming for the sake of coming, maybe to come and look at the atmosphere and leave. Are you seeing anything concrete on the ground?
They come with hope. because government is investing in trying to sell the image of the country. So when they receive those messages, they do come and inspect and see whether what is being told to them is real on the ground, is effective. And not only government, there are also private Cameroonians who are doing everything to attract foreign investors into their country. So of course, their foreign partners do come to the country to come and check whether it is really possible to do business. Some of them do stay, but most of them are really disappointed. And we see many people, so many court cases without any issue favorable to investors. Usually, those investors, we can count the number of companies, foreign multinationals that came in and that had to go back because they were disappointed with the business climate. They were disappointed with the justice. They were disappointed with administrative proceedings. They were disappointed with all that environment that is not conducive to good business.
So now let's take a particular case of the small and medium-sized enterprise in Cameroon. And we know everything must start from the base, like the small and medium-sized enterprises.
Even the very small and medium-sized before the small and medium-sized enterprises.
So what could be your assessment of the sector? Because they are facing a lot of problems as well.
Yes, they are facing a lot of problems, and they are even facing the other problem of tax pressure. The tax pressure is quite heavy on those small businesses. Let's just take what could be termed as the informal sector. The people who are bike riders. With the last law, they had an increase of 4 times what they had to pay as far as taxes are concerned, which is not really interesting for people who want to invest family savings.
In a country where the rate of employment is getting higher and higher, is it helping? Do you think it's helping the situation?
No, we don't. We don't think, and we know that we cannot even count the number of unemployed people in the country. There's no official figure so far because there are so many.
And of course, there's also this problem of investment or a lack of finances, or where to get finances to be able to start up a business of your own too. There's also that problem.
Yes, the lack of finances is related, as we said it, to the other problem, that is governance, global governance. Because, first of all, government, who is also one of the main operators as far as the economy is concerned, need to provide sufficient fund before signing contracts. Because what happens is that people sign contracts, they do perform, and it takes time for them to be paid. And at times, it takes years and ages to be paid. So government has to provide sufficient finances and manage the finances properly. That's the first step. Secondly, government has to generate a reform of the banking sector and even the banking system. Because so far, we don't have enough specialized banking structures. We don't have any specialized banking structure as far as tourism is concerned. We don't have any specialized, that's just an instance, specialized any banking structure as far as what can we say as a sector that could be interesting for the economy as well, even transportation, general transportation. So you need a general policy overhauling and reviewing the banking system as a whole to be able to generate enough finances and also provide guarantees as well to the financiers.
So it's of course a general concern. The business persons, they have their own role to play, and also the government too has a vital role to play as well. Is that what you are saying?
Yes, everybody has a role to play. The business people, first of all, have to have trust into their country. If you do not believe in your country, really there's no need for you to do business within the country, because we do not only have to think of those who are coming from overseas. First of all, we have to provide to keep our savings and make our savings available to try and generate and even develop business and jobs.
Thanks indeed, Mr. Richard Tondo, for joining us tonight on Talking Point, and we hope to have you some other time again.
Thank you as well.
And to you viewers, we thank you so much for watching. We have come to the end of this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television. See you next week. Meantime, have a wonderful stay in the company of our programs. Good evening.